So good morning, everybody. This week we have been working with some seeds that we can intentionally plant. A few weeks ago or last week we talked about how karma is a seed. Every thought, word, and action that we participate in or engage in is a seed, and it fruits in some way. Whether it's good or bad is maybe an opinion, but just what we do creates more action in the world, and it is our very nature to be active in the creation of these fruits from the seeds of our actions. And this week we've been focusing on 4 seeds that we could intentionally plant that will not only bring ourselves and our own lives closer to the goal of yoga, but also maybe to allow these actions and words, these seeds that we plant, to also help to create opportunities for all people or all living things to join into this goal of yoga, which is oneness and a sense of connection. And a sense of wholeness, all as individuals, but also our place in the wholeness of all things. And this week we have been using Nishala Joy Devi's translation of Yoga Sutra 133. I'm going to read that to you briefly, and then I want to bring in 2 other translations that might give a little bit more clarity or insight as well. So Yoga Sutra 133 is to preserve openness of heart and calmness of mind. Nurture these attitudes: kindness to those who are happy, compassion for those who are less fortunate, honor for those who embody noble qualities, and equanimity for those whose actions oppose your values. Another translation, this one is Maharishi Sadashiva Isham, is from friendliness toward happiness, from compassion toward suffering, from joyfulness toward virtue, and from indifference toward vice is born clarity of consciousness. And the reason I wanted to bring in these other translations is because she talks about equanimity for those whose actions oppose your values, but some other translations have almost made it seem more like disengagement or ignoring those who are doing the wrong thing. So here's another translation. This one is Swami Satchidananda. By cultivating attitudes of friendliness toward the happy, compassion for the unhappy, delight in the virtuous, and disregard for the wicked, the mind stuff, so this is the chitta, the heart mind, retains its undisturbed calmness. So this presupposes a couple of things. Number one, that we're starting from a place of stillness within, and that we have that sense of that steadiness within, which of course is one of the goals of yoga, is that equanimity of mind, where no matter what's happening out here or how our circumstances might change, or even how our mind shifts all the time or our feelings shift all the time, that within the deepest realm of ourself is that oneness, that connectionness, that even-mindedness. So we'll begin our class as we have the rest of this week in a comfortable but intentional seat. And as we kind of settle into that sense of steadiness or stillness within, we can allow that to be reflected in the body with a deep-seated steadiness in the lower body. And from this stillness or steadiness, we can align ourselves, so bringing a little bit of intention and awareness, as we talked about last week, that karma is inescapable. Everything we do or choose not to do has its effect in the world. But when we bring intention and awareness to our actions, to the seeds that we plant, we can stay a little bit more in alignment with our goal. So as we find that steadiness in the low body, also find that alignment through the spine. We might bring a little intention and awareness to the heart center to keep that open. And we might also bring some of that intention around the crown of the head, kind of lifting and creating that higher mindset or a broader perspective. We'll be working with some of those things as we use our bodies to help cultivate or create a metaphor for this cultivation of these 4 qualities within the self. So as we've been doing, kind of watching and noticing the breath flowing in and flowing out, noticing that this is our natural state of being, and recognizing how in the garden of our hearts or in the garden of our lives or in our minds, there are some seeds that we plant, how our actions, thoughts, and words create fruits. But also there are what we might call volunteer plants, where the actions of others also plant in our own lives, or our gardens, or our minds, or our hearts. And bringing this awareness and intention to tending our lives, or tending our chitta, the heart-mind, we can choose what things we allow to go to seed and continue to propagate in our lives, and we can choose also which things we sort of acknowledge their presence, but maybe tend to a little bit more mindfully to keep them from overrunning our garden. This week we've been bringing to mind those who are happy, and seeing if we can cultivate in alignment and steadiness within ourselves joy, genuine joy or celebration with those who are experiencing fruitfulness or joy or happiness. We've been also bringing into our hearts and minds those who are experiencing struggle or suffering, and allowing ourselves to cultivate a sense of compassion and empathy for those who are challenged. We can bring to mind and into our hearts those who have embodied noble qualities, those who are working toward the good for not only themselves but for all living things, and finding in our hearts gratitude for those people, respect and honor for those folks who have given us an example to follow on our path. And finally, our most challenging situation is to notice first our steadiness and our alignment within, and then to bring into our hearts and minds those who challenge us, those whose actions oppose our values of oneness, wholeness, and completeness, the sacredness of all life. And seeing if we can, at the very minimum, attempt to remain in our steadiness, watching our breath as we bring these people into our hearts and minds. And if we're able to maintain that steadiness, then to also see if we can just offer an acknowledgement of their humanity. And again, this several different translations of this sutra encourage us to either disregard or to disengage from those who are wicked or those whose actions oppose our values. And so allowing ourselves to sit with the fact that these folks do exist and their actions do affect the world, but also to remain undisturbed with our peace and steadiness and alignment within. To begin to more actively cultivate these four qualities, we'll engage both seated now and then later in our practice in a standing position. We're going to engage in the breath of joy. And this is a way of kind of building or cultivating energy within the body that we can then direct through our actions and poses to embody and cultivate these qualities. So this is a 3-part inhale and a 1 long exhale. The first inhale is the arms coming up to shoulder height in front of us. The second inhale, we open the arms wide, maybe even coming behind the body. And the third inhale, we sweep upward, maybe even lifting the gaze and the heart. And the exhale, we just kind of bring our arms back down. So we can't drop them unless we hit the floor, but we can do that standing. So 3-part inhale, up, open, and tall. And then an exhale. Find a rhythm that suits your body. Three more breath cycles like this. And then pause and just notice the effects, the sort of energizing that happens, or the cultivation that happens, the awakening that happens, the excitement within the body, the oxygenation and its effects on the body and the mind. And then we'll take a couple of postures just seated here that allow us to embody some of these qualities as well. So you can send the legs out long in front of you. They can be close together or wide. And first find it just an active tall seat, active through the legs and feet, lifting, kind of maintaining that alignment within. Hands can be in the lap or on the floor outside of your thighs. And just kind of lift and maybe pressing into the floor to create an active full body. Bringing awareness to each part of us, from fingers and toes to arms and legs to torso, lengthening through the neck and lifting through the crown, maybe even lifting and opening the heart a little bit. And from this active place of a 90-degree angle in the body, let's reduce that angle a little bit by bringing the heart a little closer to the toes. Maybe feel how this creates a little bit more sensation in the backs of the legs. Chin might tuck just a little bit to keep our head in alignment with the spine. Continuing to lengthen through the heels and also through the crown of the head. We're going to bring a little extra lengthening to the back of the neck and maybe even reaching down into the back of the heart by dropping the chin down to the chest. Feel how this lengthens the back of the neck a little bit more. And after we've taken a few breaths here, bringing that awareness to our internal state of being, recognizing our alignment within. Let's soften the chest forward. Maybe lifting the back of the heart a little bit and then softening again. And then from here, softening the legs and feet, taking a little bit more passive internal look. This self-awareness is one of the practices of yoga called svadhyaya, self-study or self-awareness. And as we practice this intentionally, that kind of was our tall spine and our long legs, and we were active through the whole body. Eventually that practice becomes more second nature to us, which is what we're embodying now, sort of that passive ability to look within because we're so used to maintaining our awareness. So just take a few more breaths in this shape. Then allow the back of the heart to help you transition back up to that tall seat, keeping the chin in towards the chest as we reactivate the legs and torso. And then finally lifting the chin so that the crown of the head is in line with the spine. We're back to that active state. Let's bend at the left knee, placing the left foot on the floor. It can be inside or outside of the right knee. And bring your left hand behind your body, kind of lean back, lift your heart, lift your chin, reach your right arm up tall as to kind of help this lifting sensation in the heart. And then let's bring the right hand or elbow outside of that left knee and come back to an upright seat. So we're twisting. Heart is now open to the left. See if you can maintain that lift and alignment as you open the heart, pulling the shoulders back behind the body a little. And then maybe gently turning the head from side to side, looking over each shoulder a few times. As we open our heart to other points of view, maintaining our ability to search and be curious. Take another 2 breaths here in this heart open shape to the left. And then let's reverse our process of coming into this shape. So leaning back again into that left hand, reaching the right arm kind of up and back, lifting the heart, lifting the chin. And then coming back to that neutral spine to switch legs. So left leg extends again, right knee bends. This time we'll lean back into the right hand, lifting the heart and the chin as the left arm reaches upward. And eventually the left hand or elbow will come outside of that right knee, twisting the heart open to the right. See if we can maintain that alignment through the center of the spine again, opening the heart by pulling the shoulders toward the back body. And again, shifting the gaze side to side, maintaining an openness to all points of view. Again, this doesn't mean we have to change our mind about anything, but seeing the world from someone else's point of view can help us to develop a sense of empathy and to recognize how our own mind is capable of change, our own heart is capable of turning in new directions. And just maintaining that openness and curiosity. And we'll take a few more breaths here in the twist. And again, we'll come out the same way we came in. So leaning back again into that right hand, lifting and reaching the left arm kind of up and back, opening the heart, lifting the chin. And then coming back into our neutral spine, extending both legs one more time. We'll bend at both knees to come onto the back for a moment. We're going to take a heart opening shape that helps us to maintain our inward glance. So as you come down to the mat, sacrum, shoulders, and back of the head, rooted, grounded, find that sense of neutrality in the spine. Find a more passive alignment than we've had so far in our practice today. Soles of the feet can be approximately hip distance or so apart. Arms might come down alongside the body or out a little bit wider. And just kind of notice the relationship right now as your back is soft and passive into the mat. Notice the relationship between chin and heart. And what we're going to try to do as we lift into a bridge pose is to bring the heart closer to the chin. So as you take a big inhale, fill your low belly, and as you exhale, press into the feet, lifting the heart. And we can either stay here for an extended period of time, or we can take a few breaths with the sacrum lifted, and then take a breath with the spine lowered again, then coming back into the shape. So either that steadiness in the pose or feeling free to come in and out. We'll stay here for about 10 breaths or so. So feel free to rest as often as needed. Feel which parts of you are engaged in this process of lifting the heart. And notice how there's sort of naturally that inward facing glance here as the heart lifts closer to the gaze. Feel weight in the shoulders and the heels. About 2 or 3 more rounds of breath here before we come down and out of our bridge pose. Taking your time to sink back into the floor, the whole spine aligned and supported. And from this shape, we're going to kind of encourage the abdominals to get a little involved here. I know this is sort of early in the practice, but we're going to try to wake that part of us up. So allow the feet to float away from the floor, knees just kind of softly coming in towards the chest. Allow the sacrum to remain rooted into the floor. And we have a couple different ways that we can kind of wake up this core of our being. One way would be to bring the hands to interlace behind the back of your head. And we can lift the right elbow up and toward the left knee, and then come back down. Exhaling to lift the left elbow toward the right knee and come back down. So that's one way to do it. Another way would be to draw the left knee closer to your face and extend the right leg long, and switching this way, where the head remains on the floor. And then the third way would be a combination of these two things. So right elbow coming toward the left knee as the right leg extends, and switching back and forth between the two. So we're just kind of waking up that area of the body. Maybe what you need is steadiness and the head needs to stay on the floor. Maybe you need a little bit more activity to kind of wake up your morning. So kind of choosing the version that works best for you. We're strengthening, we're kind of taking our core of our being, that essence of who we are, our Satnam, and allowing that to be sort of in the spotlight for a few more rounds of breath here as we wake our bodies up. Find your way to the final version of this shape, and then just allow the soles of the feet to come back to the floor. Knees can collapse together as the feet come a little wider. Hands might stay behind the head or come out a little wide, and just find yourself back in that natural alignment and sort of that soft, passive spine into the floor. Letting go to that effortless, natural state of being. We might feel a little heat building in the core center that we were waking up. And using and drawing on that strength and awareness of our core, we're going to again allow the feet to float away from the floor, keeping the sacrum anchored down to the mat. Knees just kind of falling softly towards the chest. Let's start to swing the knees to the right and pause. Coming back to center, to the left a little bit and pause. We're kind of hovering. at least part of the sacrum remaining on the floor, kind of switching back and forth, moving about halfway towards the floor on either side a few times. The knees here might represent that searching, that same thing we were doing with our head in our twist when we were seated. Then we're going to take a little bit more of a passive twist, so finding your way back to your neutral center, kind of making sure you feel even on both sides. Allow your nose to fall open to the right side of your mat, so just kind of looking over the right shoulder, and then allow your knees to come over to the left side. See if you can arrange your body so that both shoulders are kind of resting in the mat, that we feel passive and relaxed. And just allow your heart to be really open. Again, just like we did seated, kind of finding that ability to remain open to new points of view, turning the gaze, keeping ourselves in that curious state that allows us to cultivate empathy, that allows us to notice when people are happy and celebrate with them, notice when people are suffering and have empathy and support for them. To keep our eyes open for those who have taught us and led by example, sending them our honor with our open heart, and at least acknowledging the humanity of those who oppose our values. Again, the hardest part of remaining open-hearted here is to allow and accept that in part of the wholeness that we are, there are opposing points of view. Take about 3 to 5 more slow, mindful breaths, receiving and releasing the breath. Just as we can receive and then propagate the kindness, receive and propagate compassion, receive and propagate respect and honor, and receive and propagate those feelings of acknowledgement of opposition. When you've taken your last breath in this twist, come carefully and slowly back to center, being mindful of that core strength. Feel free to reset the spine if need be. And then allowing the nose to fall to the left and the knees to fall to the right. Again, making any adjustments to allow the body to be fully relaxed in this shape. Noticing the open heart. Remaining curious in our point of view. And allowing us an awareness of the breath to remind us that we all receive and are capable of giving kindness, joy, compassion, respect and honor, as well as a sense of detachment and indifference and a disengagement from that which does not support the goal that we are aiming toward, that wholeness and oneness. About 3 to 5 more breaths here. See how soft and passive you can become, just allowing this open-heartedness and this curiosity to be your natural state of being. And then rolling your way back to that centered alignment, resetting the spine as needed. Since we were active in our core at the beginning of class here, let's take an active way to come back up to seated, maybe a few lengthwise rolls along the length of the spine. And returning to a seated shape. And from here, just pressing our way up to a standing shape at the top of the mat. We're going to revisit that breath of joy that we did seated. We have a little bit more room for our arms now that we're not close to the floor. So if you recall, we're going to breathe in and come forward at the shoulder height with the hands. Breathe in again, come open. Breathe in a third time, reach up, and as you exhale, just allow your arms to drop. So inhale, 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 exhale. So these are not volunteer seats. We are intentionally cultivating these joyful feelings, this openness that allows us to be empathetic, sending our love and light out through the fingertips as we take a few more cycles of this breath of joy. Last round. Coming back to our sense of steadiness in the feet, that alignment through our spine, a little bit of open-heartedness and elevated of mind to prepare the soil in such a way to create these seeds or plant these seeds of kindness, compassion, respect, and equanimity or disregard. And as we do this, let's find our way through some of those same postures that we took seated and on our backs, now standing. So we'll first come into a place of balance where we can shift weight into the right foot. And just like we let the feet float off the floor in our lying back position, start to draw your left knee up towards the chest a bit, letting that left foot just kind of float. We might shake out the ankle a little bit here. And let's find a twist first. So the right hand can come outside of that left knee and just kind of draw that left knee over to the right side of the mat. You might extend your left arm out for counterbalance, or maybe touch a wall or something here to help balance. And just see if you can bring your heart opposing to the direction of the left knee. So shifting heart to the left, shifting left knee to the right side of the mat. Take a couple more breaths here. And as you untwist, we're going to step to the back of the mat with that left foot. So stepping towards the back, both the legs are straight. And we're going to shift heart and hips and toes all towards the front of the mat. Then as we inhale, lifting the heart and the gaze, the arms might also rise or they might support behind your low back. You can also interlace fingers behind the back if you like. What we're trying to do is create that lift and openness through the heart center. Just allow yourself to receive support. Maybe remembering a time where you were the recipient. Receive somebody that celebrated with you during a joyful time of your life. And then we're going to find our humility here as we exhale, keeping the legs straight. Let your heart reach for first your right toes. And if that works well, maybe even coming a little closer down to the floor. If your fingers are interlaced, they can come up and overhead. You could also use your hands to support yourself on your thigh, your shin, or the floor. Once you're down to whatever position you're going to take, you can lift the back of the heart and tuck the chin in towards the chest. So we're being humble before those teachers who have led by example. And we're also offering our humility to those whose actions oppose our values. This is a challenging mental position to be in, where we acknowledge our own mistakes and times that we have been wrong, as we acknowledge the humanity of those who oppose our values. From here, we're going to reverse the direction of the spine again. We're going to bend into both knees, coming into a low lunge. So left knee is going to drop behind. Hips are going to sink low and heart is going to lift. We can do this by pressing against the floor, pressing against the thigh, or again, raising arms or bringing them behind the back, either supporting at the low spine or interlacing the fingers. Just take a nice big few rounds of inhales here. As you exhale, sinking low, keeping that humility. As you inhale, lifting the heart and the gaze to keep your heart open, that curiosity and the mind, maybe even asking for guidance. As you exhale, let's reverse the direction of the spine again. Both hands coming inside of that right foot. We might wiggle walk or widen the right foot out a little wider. Perhaps that right knee can drop open to the right a few times, just kind of allowing that left hip to sink a little bit. Then from here, we might remain in this dragon shape with palms on the mat. We could also possibly lower down to the floor, but keep your heart open and your gaze slightly forward and slightly upward. Just kind of connecting to this shape. Two more breaths here. Find the humility in the hips and that uplifting, open curiosity in the heart and the mind. Creating space to cultivate these seeds. Then transitioning slowly, start to walk your hands back toward that left knee, beginning to straighten the right leg out in front of you. We're going to try to maintain, just like we did in our forward fold when we were seated, kind of that long lengthen activity in the right leg, as well as a lift and lengthening actively of the torso. So rather than folding over that right leg, kind of lift and lengthen. Notice the active state of this posture. 2 more breaths here, building that steadiness. And start to walk your hands back to framing the right toes. And we're going to wiggle walk that right foot over to the left wrist to find pigeon pose. We did this the opposite way earlier this week. This time, rather than lifting up and forward in pigeon pose, we're going to definitely lift the back of the heart, chin to chest. So again, you can remain on your palms or come down to forearms or even the belly. But get a sense of that inward facing look. Softening and humbling the hips down towards the floor, even as the back of the heart lifts open. Even as the gaze is ever more intense on the inner self. Acknowledging our own alignment, our own positive qualities, our own negative qualities. Helping us to have a sense of wholeness with all human beings. Cultivating kindness, compassion, honor, respect, and also that equanimity or that disregard, that detachment when needed. Take about 3 more breaths here. Returning to the palms if you were not already there. We're going to shift back very slowly from here into downward facing dog. So finding your way slowly and with steadiness. Feel the hands pushing you back and the feet pushing you forward, and allowing both of those forces to kind of lift the sacrum upward. Two more breaths in down dog, and on your second exhale, let's find our way to a plank shape. Knees can be on or off the mat. Find that long, flat spine. Feel the effort of the shape. On your next exhale, lower your belly down to the mat. Take a moment here, and then on an inhale, we'll lift the heart again. So finding these same motions in many different postures. One more breath in. As you gaze upward, exhale, release your body to the floor. And just momentarily before we rise up and out of this shape, extend your left arm over to the side. So kind of shoulder area, kind of reaching away from the shoulder, and just gently press into the right hand. And we're just going to turn the body a little bit to that right side. Your right leg might rise. It might come behind the body. It might push from in front of the body forward to kind of shift your heart. Good. One more breath here, and as you exhale, come back to your belly flat on the mat. Pressing up and back again into downward facing dog. Feel those opposing forces of hands pushing you back, feet pushing you forward. And again, we'll step both feet back to the top of the mat. Find that forward fold. Passive through the torso. Active and steady through the legs. Lifting the back of the heart and allowing your chin to come up last. Start to slowly roll, stacking your spine back in that alignment. And then finally lifting the head so that the crown of the head is in line with the rest of the spine. So we'll find, if I can remember it all, we'll find that same flow on the other side. So we'll shift in our weight into the left foot this time, allowing the right knee to lift towards the chest. Maybe the ankle rolls a little bit. And if you remember, we're starting our twist from here. So the left hand can come outside of that right knee, pulling the right knee over to the left side of your mat. Perhaps that right arm comes out to the side. Perhaps our gaze shifts or the heart begins to oppose the hips a little bit. And this is us remaining curious and open. Notice the precariousness of the shape. As we open to new points of view, it can kind of shake us a little bit. And just allowing yourself to try to be as steady as you can as you open to more kindness, more compassion, more honor, more equanimity. As you release your twist, we're again stepping towards the back of the mat with that right leg. Both toes and hips and heart and gaze are forward towards the top of the mat. And again, from here, we'll find that lift. So pressing into both feet, feeling the heart shift upward, the gaze shifts upward, arms might rise or support you or interlace behind your back. Just kind of be open, remain curious, receive these qualities in ways that you've experienced them in your own life as the recipient. Allow those seeds to plant in your heart and your consciousness. And again, from here, we'll take our forward fold. So depending on where your arms are, we're going to shift our heart towards the left toes at first. And if that's comfortable for you, you can release the hands to support you on your thigh or your leg somewhere or the floor, lifting the back of the heart and allowing the chin to come in towards the chest. Kind of a little cat back here as we look within. Feel the challenge of humbling yourself, not only before those who have been good examples and good teachers, but also humbling yourself to acknowledge your own mistakes and to at least acknowledge the humanity of those whose actions oppose your values. Kind of staying peaceful within yourself, so having that disregard for the actions of those who oppose your values. Remaining steady in yourself, humble, and also open-hearted. All of the back of the heart is now open. Shifting again here to both knees bending to come into that low lunge, right knee dropping behind you on the mat. Lifting the heart up, either by pressing into the floor or the thigh, reaching up, or again, possibly interlacing the fingers here. Let the hips sink low, that humility, even as you lift and open through the heart and the chest. So looking upward. Take about 3 more breaths. On the last exhale of this pose cycle, we're going to bring both hands again inside of that left foot. So as you're ready, transitioning into our dragon, we could widen that left foot out a little bit more. Perhaps we stay here on palms, perhaps we drop down, but again, we're facing upward and forward regardless of the position of the hands. So sinking low again through the hips and lifting and opening through the heart center. As your next exhale flows out, start to slowly walk your hands back toward the right knee, pulling that left leg a little straighter. And again, also trying to find that same activity and lifting and lengthening through the torso. So we've got that flat back and long straight leg in the left side. We might play with pulling the left hip back or shifting the hips around a little bit just to see what different sensations are available here. About 2 more breaths in this more active shape. And slowly walking forward again. We'll start to shift the left ankle behind the right wrist so we can find our pigeon pose here. So left knee drops over to the left. And again, we can take kind of that upright shape with hands on the mat or drop down to belly or forearms, but we're going to start to bring the chin in towards the chest. We're taking the sort of inward glance this time. Let your hips be humbled and reach down towards the floor. Let the back of your heart be lifted. And finding again that same sense of humility as we acknowledge those who have led us in the right direction, offering them our respects and our acknowledgement. Also being humble in recognizing the mistakes that we've made in our own lives, and seeing if we can just offer that same sense of humanity
And if we're really up for the challenge, even some forgiveness or grace for those who have also opposed our values with their actions. Noticing that this is not particularly a comfortable or easy pose. It's also not really a comfortable action, but planting seeds of compassion for self and for others is part of this gardening that we're doing, or this tending toward that oneness, that wholeness, and that state of yoga. Just a few more cycles of breath flowing through. We might start to walk our way back to the palms here. And again, carefully and slowly with intention and mindfulness, start to find your way into a downward facing dog shape. Palms pressing you towards the back of the mat, feet pressing you towards the front of the mat, allowing those two opposing forces to lift up the sacrum. 2 more breaths here. And on that second exhale, we're finding our way to plank position, long neutral spine effort here, whether the knees are lifted or lowered toward the mat. Find that steadiness and equanimity against the odds of the activity of this shape. Then we'll release the belly down to the floor again. Take just a brief pause before lifting the heart and the gaze, pulling the shoulders back, taking a few rounds of breath in this upward shape. On an exhale, we'll release all the way back down to the belly again. This time the right arm extends out to the right on the floor. Left hand underneath your shoulder presses your heart open to the left. Maybe that left leg comes in front of or behind the body as we sort of twist and open, keeping us curious, changing our perspective. On an exhale, we'll release this twisted shape, coming back to the belly. Both hands now underneath the shoulders, pressing up and back again, nice and slow into downward facing dog. Feeling within ourselves those opposing forces of the arms pressing us back, legs pressing us forward, and how this helps to lift the sacrum. Acknowledging the role of opposition in helping us to find oneness. Next, exhale, both feet again. We'll travel to the top of the mat. Find that passive forward fold, steady in the legs and feet. Chin in towards the chest, that intense inward facing gaze. Back of the heart is open and cat-like. 2 more breaths here. And very slowly lifting the back of the heart, beginning to stack the spinal bones, letting the chin come up last, bringing the crown of the head back into alignment with the rest of the spine. Just take a moment here, pause, maybe close your eyes. Feel that internal steadiness, that internal alignment. We're just going to take a couple of half sun salutations here before we find our way back down to the floor. So this can be done in any position with your arms. What we want to find is on an inhale that the heart and the gaze lift, perhaps the arms as well. On an exhale, we're taking that fold. On an inhale, we'll find a flat back where legs and torso are active and lengthening. Then inhale and hinge your way back up to standing. Maybe we're opening again here through the heart and the gaze, lifting. Exhale, take a fold. Back of the heart is now open. Chin is in towards the chest. Inhale, half lift, legs and torso active and lengthening. Inhale again, rise. Let's take one more. So heart lifts, gaze lifts, maybe the hands. On an exhale, find your fold again, gazing inward, back of the heart now open. Inhale, flat back, lengthening actively and intentionally through both halves of the body.
And then finally rising one last time. And again, taking a little pause. Feel the effects of that openness and that inward facing on the alignment and steadiness of the body. And we're going to start to find our way into steadiness and stillness now. So we'll begin to come back down to the mat. Feel free, I've been offering as an option to take a seated rest pose today. If you have enough props nearby and that seems like a good idea, go for it. If not, feel free to take a more traditional Shavasana shape, whether supported or unsupported. What we're aiming for in the rest pose shape is to come into a place of deep steadiness. So starting to soften the body into the floor. Whether we're seated or lying down, finding that sense of alignment, that natural state of being. The alignment of the head, the heart, and the body. A sense of deep stillness, consistency, and steadiness in the body. So again, these 4 seeds that we're going to intentionally plant in our effort to bring oneness to ourselves and all. Kindness to those who are happy, or joy and celebration with those who are experiencing joy. Releasing ourselves of any jealousy or judgment. Second seed is compassion, empathy, and support for those who are less fortunate, those who might be struggling or suffering. Creating within ourselves the space needed to be of support, to have a strong sense of empathy and connection, even with those who are unhappy. Third, we're bringing our honor and our respect and our humility before those who embody noble qualities, those who are virtuous. And finally, bringing in that sense of disconnection, disregard, and uninvolvement with those who are opposing our values, but also remaining in our state of equanimity, which means not losing ourselves in judgments of others and not creating an egoistic sense of being better than anyone else. Just acknowledging with humility our own mistakes and acknowledging the humanity of those who are currently making those mistakes, whose actions are in opposition to our values. Fall deeper and deeper now into a sense of stillness, of passiveness, coming into our natural state of being, of alignment, of wholeness, of even-mindedness, and that steadiness. Continue to observe the breath flowing in and out, recognizing our natural state of stillness within, but also action in the body. The life-sustaining practices of the heart beating and the breath flowing, which are not really a choice, they're more of a state of the way we are. And recognizing that also true of karma. It is our natural state to plant seeds, and for those seeds to propagate and grow into some kind of fruit or flower. And allowing our awareness or our mindfulness to connect with that inner steadiness, that inner stillness and alignment toward our values of oneness, connection, and wholeness. Taking the next minute or so to slowly bring the body back into more intentional action. Movements and the hands and feet, maybe a stretching outward and then a pulling inward, but taking your time over the next minute and a half or so to remain in a state of stillness within, even as the body begins to take action again. And in our seated, steady position, just again finding a few moments to observe our natural alignment and the natural occurring action of our breath flowing in and out, remembering that we both receive the seeds of the actions of others and that our actions affect much more than just ourselves. Recognizing our place in wholeness and being intentional and mindful about the seeds of actions, thoughts, and words that we can plant to bring about a sense of steadiness in that wholeness, not just for ourselves, but for all others as well. Settle into your natural alignment, then lengthen the back of the neck again by bringing the chin in towards the chest. Palms coming together to acknowledge our oneness and the fact that opposing forces can sometimes lift us up, and pulling that oneness into the heart center. Acknowledging our truth, acknowledging our humanity, and acknowledging our oneness and connection to all. And as we live from that place more and more through practice and progress, our life begins to be one of service toward this goal of union and yoga and oneness and wholeness. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy, healthy, safe, and free. Namaste.